Welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with Michelle, and what I'm going to lovingly refer to, as everyone else does, Dr. Z. You and I met on the speed dating thing that Alignable had, and you were one of the people that just stood out to me. And it's like, okay, I need to spend more time in the room with you.
Oh, yes, yes, the feeling was mutual. So
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you. So anyway, so I thank you for the time of coming on and sharing what you do, your expertise, and some thoughts around leadership with people listening. So I'm going to kick us off with a quote. Let me introduce Dr. C. You're like, oh, who is she? I'm going to read stuff because I've written notes. CEO and founder of Impoweredd, as your t-shirt says. Educational consultant. And I loved how you described yourself as an edupreneur.
Yes,
And so you've got the history of, I think you were a principal at one point, weren't you?
I
And
was, yes.
yeah, so I love how people find their path and that passion thing that you wind around. So a lot of what you and I talked about was around love and leadership, that leadership is a form of love, right? And we all have different forms of that, which is where our quote is that we're going to kick off. Leadership is not a rank or a position, it's a choice to look after the person to the left of us and the person to the right of us. And that's Simon Sinek. And when I ran
Yes,
across that, it just seemed to freaking hit with what you and I talked about before we hit record on the stuff. And so when I look at that, it is a choice. And I think you referred to something as heart work, right? It's your
yes,
heart work. And I think what that resonates with me is passion. And so when you're in a place that you have passion around, you do care for the people that are in your charge, if you will, or the people in your sphere, your area. And I think of anything less than that, because we've all run across leaders that's not the case. And it's more like a job to do, almost like a checklist, and it's very impersonal, and there isn't that caring, feeling, nurturing space. And I think more than ever before today, we need that leader that you're describing, the
mhm,
heart-centered, the love, to be able to step into it. So Dr. Z,
absolutely.
thank you. Welcome to the conversation. And what's on your mind?
Well, I just love all things leadership. As you mentioned, my background, I was a former school principal. So I've retired from that and I transitioned into being an educational consultant. And I am doing this work. I left the principalship. I was a principal. I enjoyed what I did. And when I transitioned to a new state back in 2019, and then COVID hit, I was looking to see what I would do next. And this was it, right? Because I was able to, in this work where I go into schools and I still work with families and with principals and coach them through transitions, specifically around with principals, I'm doing principal coaching and mentoring for new and novice principals.
Oh, I love
So they're
that.
making the transition into the role where
I
I've
love
made the
that.
transition out of the role. And so there were a lot of lessons in between. And I think about how my love for this work developed. So when we were talking about um, leadership and how I define, I really do see it as hard work. It's
Yeah.
it's what I do because it's who I am,
Mm-hmm.
right? I've always, here's the thing, I wasn't always a leader. I was I was a teacher. I was an educator. I taught. No, never mind that many of them were invisible when I was 8 years old. I was teaching, okay? But I then went on to teach high school and to teach graduate school. And even in my work today, in working in schools and then also working with families of athletes, I'm still teaching. I'm loving what I do. And so thinking of that quote that you shared, it really is a choice, right? It is something that I think I feel like I'm deliberate in how I choose to um, lead and how I choose to love, quite frankly,
Mm-hmm.
because even that's a choice, right?
Yeah.
We can approach things however we choose to do it, but I truly believe it to be HeartWork that I'm really passionate about whatever I
Yeah.
do. So specifically around educating, leading, and loving, quite frankly. They
So
all go
I
together.
would love for you to share more because I know you've got, and I'm going to call them swim lanes, right? Of the different types of work that you engage. You've written a book, Alley. I know
Yes.
you've got another one that you've written that you haven't published yet. I think it's around women in leadership, right? Around
Well, women
empowering
in
women. Yeah.
transition. Women in
Yes.
transition. Yep.
Yes.
So
So that, and I know you and I connected on that piece of it, but I would love for you to say a little bit more about the athletes and that whole space that you're in, because you do a lot of work there.
so yeah, let me grab my book. Let me see. Here she
There
is.
you
She's
go.
okay.
Good
So
job.
yes, I wrote this book, the second edition of Ali Oop, the ultimate assist for parents of athletes. And I consider, like I said, I consider myself to be a transition life coach. And so what I'm doing with this book is using the book to help leverage my work with families of athletes.
Mhm.
Specifically, right now, I'm targeting fifth grade through eighth grade in basketball in particular, although I have worked in all sports and I've gone all the way from
Yeah.
fifth grade to the pros. But the reason why is having done the work from fifth grade all the way up through the pros, I found that a lot of clients that I was getting, um, they were late to the party. And I say
Um,
that they were 11th grade, 12th grade families where the children maybe didn't have as many college opportunities on the table or maybe none at all. And I was able to help them to meet their goals, but it was much more challenging than it would have been if I had gotten them a lot sooner. So I'm
Okay,
looking
so
at
I
those.
have a question for you then, just for clarification, right? Because when you think about working with, helping with, there's different ways that you could do that, right? It could be like I'm helping them to adjust to the intensity, the structure, the rigor, the all that stuff. But it sounds like you're helping them on the educational side. So this is where the edupreneur comes in to say, okay, what's the track for you to get the education that supports what your natural love for this game is so that you're a total package. Is that right?
Yes. So
Okay.
what we do at Empowered is we help families of athletes navigate their sport and their school systems to meet
Okay.
their goals, and prepare for the next level, whatever that is,
Right.
and earn scholarships. Ultimately,
Okay.
I want them to get opportunities to play at the
Yeah.
next level and not have to pay for it. And so, in doing so, this book talks about the deliberate decisions that my husband and I made to make
Right.
sure that we positioned our children to be able to meet their goals.
Right.
And most people can learn a lot from it, not just in the
Yeah.
school, but just in general. Because we as parents, we make choices, right? We make
Yeah.
certain decisions. So what I'm able to do in Empowered is specifically for that particular student, we are able to look at them as an entire being, right? An
Mm-hmm.
entire being, not an athlete,
Yeah.
not just a student, but the entire being, and create a specific plan, almost like an IEP for those of you who are really in the
Yeah.
education world and
Yeah.
remember those individualized education plans. We do the same thing for their sport, except it gives them their whole trajectory. We're looking at their transcripts. We're helping them pick courses. We literally become a part of the family so that if I get you in fifth grade or even eighth grade, we're ready by the
Oh,
time we figure
yeah.
out what our goals are. 10th grade, 11th grade, when we have to start to
Yeah.
execute. Now we don't have to lift as heavy to get them
Yeah.
on to the next level.
So I have a
So
question for you because I mean, my brain's going to all the stuff that you're talking about, right? Is around the plan, the strategy, that to your point, the intentional decisions, and you're getting them ready, air quote, ready for that next open door, that next level, right? And I think about it, the same thing happens with leaders, as we're coaching and developing and everything. And it's like, how do you get ready for your next open door in your career? Only now we're starting back in fifth grade to go, okay, here's your trajectory here to get you through. And I love the idea that we don't have to wait and to actually start working on this stuff, that there's things that can be done to set them up for success back here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you had mentioned earlier that there are these multiple arms to my business. So the one arm I
Yes.
mentioned is what I do with the families of athletes. And then, as I mentioned, I also work with schools and push in and work with new and novice principals. When I first began my principalship, like hmm, I don't want to date myself, but
A minute ago. It
been
was a minute
yeah,
ago.
it was a minute ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So way back when, one of the best things that happened for me was I was assigned. My district had a grant at the time, and I was assigned a retired principal who came in and supported me in my role. So she would come
You had
a
a
couple of
mentor.
times. I had a mentor,
Oh,
which
I
is
love that.
exactly what my program, my other arm, which is called Prince Support, that's the other arm of Empower does. We provide that same type of mentorship for new and novice principals who need some assistance, need some guidance. We go in and we do a
Yeah.
whole climate survey and we help them figure some things out. Because when you're in those first few years, you're so busy trying to learn all the things you have to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that it's just helpful to have someone that you can run things by, that can support you through the process. And so that's what we do through our Prince Support program. So the same thing I'm doing with the athletes, I'm catching now the principals at the beginning of their leadership journey
Okay.
and helping them so that when they get farther down, we're preparing them for their next level, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
what they'll transition into next. So
Yeah.
that
So
was
on a scale, when you look back then on a scale, because the stuff's thrown around about, whether or not people need a coach or whether or not you get a mentor, scale of 1 to 10, one, it doesn't matter at all. 10, not even an option. You have to do this. Where is having a mentor from your personal experience on that scale?
off of it. It's
Okay, so
way
it's
beyond.
higher than 10.
It's higher than 10. Let me tell you
Okay.
something. So you mentioned what I do in my business. Every single thing that we talk about, all that I want to do is get people ready, right? You see
Yeah.
my REDD. I like spell my ready like REDDY. Like let's go, let's grow.
Your
That's what we're actually
last
trying to do.
name is Reddish.
Yes, let's go. Let's go. So we need to get ready. Everything's about preparation,
Yeah.
right? So if I know what to expect, even if it's challenging,
Mm-hmm.
I can do it when
Yep.
I know what to expect. So I can do anything for a finite period of time. I can decide, remember those, we go back to the choice, in that
Yep.
I can decide how I'm going to look at the situation and I will succeed. I will
Yep.
win at whatever I position myself to do, period. And so I feel like with a mentor, you have someone who's been where you are. Because I always
Yep.
talk about knowledge is important, but I need to know how to apply it, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
need someone who's been where I am or where I'm going. Okay.
Yep.
So as a mentor, I've been where you are. I've worked with all types of students. I've been in all kinds of buildings. I've worked at every level. I am here to be a person to help you kind of talk things out. Even as
Yep.
leaders, coaches need coaches, right?
Yep.
Therapists need therapists, you know? So leaders need coaches, they need mentors, but having that person in a non-evaluative situation is priceless.
Well, and it's
Where
one of those things you talk about. So there was a leader that, I was her coach for a while, and then she became a friend, but what she called it was soundboarding. And so you need someone that is at that level that can soundboard and not take you into the depths of yuck, but can actually, to your point, shift your mindset or your perspective to something else, to where it's like, okay, yeah, you could do da 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 da, da, but I'm hearing this too. And what do you think about whatever? And that person needs to have some level of experience to be able to go to help guide and form when you're doing that.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Um,
everyone needs a hand. And when, like I said, in the building leadership role is so challenging, especially today, post COVID, there have been shifts in the way that students engage, shifts in the way that parents work with their students, and even how we instruct, quite
Yeah.
frankly, has changed since the COVID era, I would say,
Yeah.
as on the down skirt of that. So I feel like it's something that we really, really need at this juncture, just again to prepare for what's next. This next new generation, we've got AI here. We're going in another direction, and
Well,
I feel
yeah,
like
we're already on the freeway in that, I mean,
we're
that
out of
we
here.
passed the off ramp, I mean, it's like, yeah,
We're like
we're
in the
we're
Jetson age. Remember
yeah,
the
we're
Jetsons?
full blown into it. Yeah. So, and I wonder how much it's like you talk about COVID, and I've got stuff that comes to mind from that. I've got leaders that are organizations that are like, people need to come back on site. And then you've got people that, if COVID had lasted a month, maybe two, people go, get me back to work, get me back to work. But it's been freaking 4 years.
Yeah.
And so people have settled into the new norm, as people used to call it, but it's the norm now.
Yeah.
And so now you've got this whole nother level of change that you're wanting people to return to what they loved before, that they grieved of giving up. But the reality of it is there's not another pandemic, which is the impetus for people to go back to brick and mortar buildings.
Correct.
And yet I was coaching one leader the other day, and he's like, yeah, I'm going back a couple days a week, and I actually like it.
Yeah.
It's
Uh,
nice to see people again.
yeah. And
So
that,
we got to figure out what that looks like.
yeah. And it's one of those things where people have, to your point, been in their homes, where they've been working differently, they've been led differently by their superiors.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
now, as we transition back into it, we as leaders need to be intentional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Intentional about how we engage our constituents so that they want to work, so that they want to perform for us, not just that they're just doing the work.
Yeah.
And that comes from how much we invest in them, how much we
Yeah.
care about them as
Yeah.
individuals. When we show how much we care, it's reciprocated,
Yeah.
and they're going to do a better job at their work. They're going to do better with their work, and it's a win-win for all.
Okay. My screen went
What?
black for a minute, so I'm like,
Oh,
where did she go? And you're back now.
well,
It's all good.
you were
I
there the
totally
whole
agree with
time.
you. Do me a favor, and you've got a quote that you pulled up. I would love for you to share that, because just the journey of what we're talking about choices or things that we don't plan on, that tend to play out, and whether or not what we step in and do with, I'm going to call it, the hand that we're dealt.
That part. Okay. Yes. So we were talking about quotes, and I came across this one, and I thought, wow, it really resonated with me. It says, a true leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. He does not set out to be a leader, but becomes one by the equality of his actions and the integrity of his intent. That was General Douglas MacArthur.
Thank you.
So you won't necessarily go all like, oh, this is the HeartWork, and go to a general, right? But it made me think about my journey in this work.
Yeah.
Because like I mentioned, I started out as a teacher. I didn't really desire to be a principal. I wanted to teach. I love teaching people. In fact, I remember when I was leaving high school, my dream job, I was going to be the secretary in the school.
What?
And when I think about this now, it's just so funny. The secretary seemed to know everything.
Oh, okay.
She knew everything, but I felt like she knew more than the principal. So I didn't want to be the principal. I wanted to be a secretary, right? And she ran stuff, and everybody listened to her, and she just always looked so busy, and it just I was like, oh, I want to do that. And so it's funny, fast forward to when I was actually
I
a
love it.
principal and had my own secretary. I remember having a conversation with my secretary at the time, like, this is so weird. Like, I wanted to be you. She's like, what? I'm like, no, I want you was who I was aspiring to be. She's like,
Oh
are you
my
kidding me? But
God.
I think back to this journey. It's been quite one over the last 25 years or so
Yeah,
that I've had in education and administration. But when I was at the very beginning of my stage, I had that mentor that was able to assist me. And I can remember specifically, I was a young principal
yeah.
in my 20s,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And so, yes. So some people have been teaching longer than I
Sure.
have been alive. Okay.
Yeah,
So there was that, like, imposter syndrome going into the job. And I remember when there would be groups of teachers, two or three of them would come to me and they would say, oh, we don't like this or we don't like that. And I would look at it, listen to it, and I would change my mind based on what this group of folks said. And we're
right.
going to do it this way now. We're going to do it like that. And I remember how tumultuous my first few years were. And one of my teachers who retired not long after I became a principal, so she had been teaching for many longer than I,
Yeah,
way longer.
yeah,
She came in one day. She shut the door and she said, "Listen, Xanthia, I see what you're trying to do, and I I appreciate that you are trying to really make everyone happy. And
yeah.
I wanted to make everyone happy." She said, "But when it's not possible. Good
Mhm,
leaders don't make everyone happy.
mhm,
They do what they need to do to find out all the background information. They talk to whomever they need to talk to, and then they make a decision.
mhm,
And they stick by their decision because it was for whatever reasons, X,
mhm,
Y, and Z, that it was." And I was so busy chasing people to like me as a
mhm.
20 something,
Yeah,
7, 8 year old,
yeah,
that I was not a strong leader. And so
yeah.
when I came across this, a true leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. It really
Mhm,
resonated with me because you can listen to everything and take all that information in, but once you make your decision and you believe it, you need to stand for something,
mhm.
or you're not an effective leader. And again, you're not going to make everyone happy if you're a good leader,
Yeah,
because
it's
someone
it I
yeah,
totally agree with you, and one of the things that stands out for me, right, is that the visual that I had when you were describing that is this pendulum, right? It's like we're doing this, and now we're doing this, and now we're doing this, and now we're doing this. And I think what the quote talks about is this idea that you need to create a platform so people can be heard. Okay. And then after people are heard, then you can make informed decisions based on what's going on after you've factored in all that stuff. Versus to her point, and kudos to her for having the courage to give you feedback, right?
he was
But
retiring.
it's one of those things, yeah. Well, yeah, but it's like you step into it and all of a sudden people don't trust that you're going to stand by what you just said you were going to do, because in 2 weeks if some other louder voices come along you're going to switch back to something else.
Exactly. It's so true. And so we as leaders, and we lead in our homes as parents, we lead in our workplaces. There are
Yeah,
so many opportunities for us to lead. So we're not just talking about in the classroom or on a job.
no,
Everywhere where we are considered leaders, we have to be thoughtful about the decisions that we make. And like I said, I'm not saying to go in a rabbit hole and not take any input from
yeah,
anyone. You have a choice. You need to look to your left, like your quote said, look to your
yeah,
left, look to your right, consider all of those things, and then you make a solid decision, whatever that is,
mhm,
and you stand by it. And so that's my reasons literally behind the books that I've written. It was the reason why I wrote Alley Oop. It's the reason why I have this other book around leadership and the hard work that it entails.
yeah,
They're decisions. How do we make those decisions and stand by them and sleep at night, right?
mhm.
Because some of them are not easy decisions.
And well, a lot of them aren't. Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of them are not, but there are decisions that we have to make, and we have to stand by that is what a leader does. And then she takes, like this General MacArthur said, he does not set out to be a leader, but
Yep.
becomes one by the equality of his actions and the integrity of his intent. You know,
Mm-hmm.
how intentional are we? Like we mean well. I know we mean well. I think,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as a parent, you know, my children would say, "No, you didn't get it all right. We didn't like that you did X, Y, and Z," because they're adults now. They let you know when they're adults.
Yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
at the end of the day, there's not a question of what my intention was,
Right.
how what I wanted to get across. And then, you know, I talk about this in the book. It's important for us to really make sure that we are explaining our why. A lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of leaders go wrong by doing the what or just going to execute something
Yeah.
without making sure that all the constituents understand all of those things you considered and how you
Yeah.
arrived at the determinations that
Yeah,
you did.
no, I totally agree because it goes back to, change management 101.
Yeah.
People are going to go through their change journey. You have to have an awareness. They make the personal decision to step in and support it. They need to understand what's expected of them. They need time to be able to adjust so they can be successful in whatever this post-change world is. And then the stuff's in place so they don't go back. That's pro-size ADKAR, which I think is super intuitive,
Yeah.
but you're absolutely right. And people skip over why this is needed. And if we skip over why this is needed, people will replace it with a story. And it's not going to be the story that's going to serve you.
Well, they would fill those blanks for sure.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to whenever your new book comes out around, women in transitions and all that stuff. I freaking love being in the room with you. You were
Oh,
like this when I first met, and you're still, I mean, you're just a ray of sunshine.
oh,
Um,
thank you.
so I would love to hear as we wrap this up, what are one or two things, Zanthia, that stand out for you that you want people to walk away with?
I want people to walk away with remembering to, and we didn't even talk about this, to be you. Be you, because as you mentioned, being you is beautiful. Be beautiful. Okay. And in doing that, you're able to show up as your authentic self and give your authentic self to your work. And
Mm-hmm.
it will show. It will
Mm-hmm.
show in everything. You know, I am, you know, so humbled by your comments about me. And I feel so blessed because there was a time when I, especially in my younger years as a younger
Mm-hmm.
leader, trying to figure out, what are they going to think of me? You know, all
Yeah.
those imposter syndromes. Is want everybody to know. Everybody has them. You know what I mean? At some
Mm-hmm.
point, we all are nervous or stressing, but it wasn't until really embraced who I am as a
Mm-hmm.
person that I developed the confidence to show up as myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I kid you not, the number one thing I get when I engage with anyone at any time is there's a certain energy about, and I'm like, huh, really? But it's so it must be true because it's everywhere I go. So when you make those kind comments, I'm just like, so I'm like, God, I thank you because then my living is not in vain. I'm doing what I'm purposed and passionate about doing,
Yeah.
and I can be me. I'm being
Yeah.
beautiful at it. So
Yeah.
that's what I would encourage everyone to do in, you know, when you really love the way you lead, you
Mm-hmm.
can lead and love. So
Yeah.
that's what I would share.
Yeah, I thank you for that. It's so funny. I'm sitting here bobbleheading, which I do with people, that I'm saying, yeah, yeah, yeah. The thing that comes to mind for me, right, is you could have people that have this preconceived notion about what leadership has to be
Yeah.
and what it can't include. And I think the thing about that is to break through what those constraints may be. Because I hear people say, well, I can't do that or I can't be that. And I'm like, where's this rule book coming from? Because I think to your point, it is about caring about people. And it doesn't mean that, you're Chrissy Buford, who I do the podcast with, she's been on a few times. She says, it's not like, Michelle, you have to invite them over for Christmas dinner. But you do have to develop relationships with people and you do care about people. And when people know you care, then there's just a completely different dynamic, right?
Absolutely.
And part of caring is accepting people for who they are. And it's like, don't judge, but be, oh my God, you're so different than me. What the heck can I learn from you? Right.
Yes.
But I think that's it. And it's just this, the confidence from the experience you had, from how you engage with people. There's a confidence. And I'm assuming what happens is people that are in the room with you, that you're guiding through life's transitions, and out of your mouth comes, it's going to be great. You're going to land on your feet. You're going to get where you need to go because you're so sure of that. It doesn't matter what kind of rocky roads ahead. They believe it. And I'm sure some weight gets lifted off their shoulders and they're like, Dr. Z said it's going to be okay. Let's go.
So funny. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I do believe, again, when you're walking in your passion and your purpose, this is like I've been doing it since I was 8. This
Yep.
is what we do, you
Yep.
know? So it's not anything foreign. I literally see it as a ministry. I was able to go from doing something I love to do, principaling every day, to
Yep.
going to schools and helping other administrators feel happy and confident and prepared for
Yep.
whatever they're going to see. And you know how that's the beauty of leadership. Every day is different, right? Every day is different. So I love, even in everything that's different, I can still show up as the same
Well,
me.
and I think what you're talking about, and this is where I'd encourage other people too, is right. How do you expand your reach? So you've literally taken the reach that you had over whatever system that you were in before as a principal, and you've given it legs. So you're impacting other principals through other, brick and mortar buildings, wherever that virtually. And I think that's a really freaking cool thing. So I thank you for that. I look forward to more. I would love to have you back on so we can talk about more of what you do, because there's plenty of things we didn't hit on.
It is. Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely.
So,
Anytime.
oh, thank you. Okay, well, I'm going to take you up on that. So this has been Leadership Soundbites with Michelle and Dr. Z. And until next time, please like, share, subscribe, ring the little bell so you can get notifications. Have an awesome day. Thank you.
Yes, do it on purpose.